Section 32 of Villette by Charlotte Bronte. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Leanne Fortune. Section 32. One morning, Mrs. Breton, coming promptly into my room, desired me to open my drawers and show her my dresses, which I did without a word. "That will do," said she, when she had turned them over. "You must have a new one." She went out. She returned presently with a dressmaker. She had me measured. "I mean," said she, "to follow my own taste and to have my own way in this little matter." 2 days after came home a pink dress. "That is not for me," I said hurriedly, feeling that I would almost as soon clothe myself in the costume of a Chinese lady of rank. "We shall see whether it is for you or not," rejoined my godmother, adding with her resistless decision, "Mark my words, you will wear it this very evening." I thought I should not. I thought no human force should avail to put me into it. A pink dress! I knew it not. It knew not me. I had not proved it. My godmother went on to decree that I was to go with her and Graham to a concert that same night, which concert, she explained, was a grand affair to be held in the large salle or hall of the principal musical society. The most advanced of the pupils of the Conservatoire were to perform. It was to be followed by a lottery au bénéfice des pauvres. And to crown all, the King, Queen, and Prince of Labassecour were to be present. Graham, in sending tickets, had enjoined attention to costume as a compliment due to royalty. He also recommended punctual readiness by 7 o'clock. About 6 I was ushered upstairs. Without any force at all, I found myself led and influenced by another's will, unconsulted, unpersuaded, quietly overruled. In short, the pink dress went on, softened by some drapery of black lace. I was pronounced to be en grande tenue, and requested to look in the glass. I did so with some fear and trembling. With more fear and trembling, I turned away. 7 o'clock struck. Dr. Breton was come. My godmother and I went down. She was clad in brown velvet. As I walked in her shadow, how I envied her those folds of grave, dark majesty! Graham stood in the drawing-room doorway. "I do hope he will not think I've been decking myself out to draw attention," was my uneasy aspiration. "Here, Lucy, are some flowers," said he, giving me a bouquet. He took no further notice of my dress than was conveyed in a kind smile and satisfied nod, which calmed at once my sense of shame and fear of ridicule. For the rest, the dress was made with extreme simplicity, guiltless of flounce or furbelow. It was but the light fabric and bright tint which scared me, and since Graham found in it nothing absurd, my own eye consented soon to become reconciled. I suppose people who go every night to places of public amusement can hardly enter into the fresh gala feeling with which an opera or a concert is enjoyed by those for whom it is a rarity. I am not sure that I expected great pleasure from the concert, having but a very vague notion of its nature, but I liked the drive there well, the snug comfort of the close carriage on a cold though fine night, the pleasure of setting out with companions so cheerful and friendly, the sight of the stars glinting fitfully through the trees as we rolled along the avenue, then the freer burst of the night sky when we issued forth to the open chaussee, the passage through the city gates, the lights there burning, the guards there posted, the pretence of inspection to which we there submitted, and which amused us so much. All these small matters had for me, in their novelty, a peculiarly exhilarating charm. How much of it lay in the atmosphere of friendship diffused about me, I know not. Dr. John and his mother were both in their finest mood, contending animatedly with each other the whole way, and as frankly kind to me as if I had been of their kin. Our way lay through some of the best streets of Villette, streets brightly lit, and far more lively now than at high noon. How brilliant seemed the shops! How glad, gay, and abundant flowed the tide of life along the broad pavement! While I looked, the thought of the rue Fossette came across me, of the walled-in garden and schoolhouse, and of the dark, vast classes, where, as at this very hour, it was my wont to wander all solitary, gazing at the stars through the high, blindless windows, and listening to the distant voice of the reader in the refectory monotonously exercised upon the lecture pews. Thus must I soon again listen and wonder, and this shadow of the future stole with timely sobriety across the radiant present. By this time we had got into a current of carriages, all tending in one direction, and soon the front of a great illuminated building blazed before us. Of what I should see within this building I had, as before intimated, but an imperfect idea, for no place of public entertainment had it ever been my lot to enter yet. We alighted under a portico, where there was a great bustle and a great crowd, but I do not distinctly remember further details, until I found myself mounting a majestic staircase, wide and easy of ascent, deeply and softly carpeted with crimson, leading up to great doors closed solemnly, and whose panels were also crimson clothed. I hardly noticed by what magic these doors were made to roll back. Dr. John managed these points. Roll back they did, however, and within was disclosed a hall, grand, wide, and high, whose sweeping circular walls and domed hollow ceiling seemed to me all dead gold, thus with nice art was it stained, relieved by cornicing, fluting, and garlandry, either bright, like gold burnished, or snow white, like alabaster, or white and gold mingled in wreaths of gilded leaves and spotless lilies. Wherever drapery hung, wherever carpets were spread, or cushions placed, the sole colour employed was deep crimson. Pendant from the dome flamed a mass that dazzled me, a mass, I thought, of rock crystal, sparkling with facets, streaming with drops, ablaze with stars, and gorgeously tinged with dews of gems dissolved, or fragments of rainbows shivered. It was only the chandelier, reader, but for me it seemed the work of Eastern genii. I almost looked to see if a huge, dark, cloudy hand, that of the slave of the lamp, were not hovering in the lustrous and perfumed atmosphere of the cupola, guarding its wondrous treasure. We moved on. I was not at all conscious whither, but at some turn we suddenly encountered another party approaching from the opposite direction. I just now see that group, as it flashed upon me for one moment. A handsome middle-aged lady in dark velvet, a gentleman who might be her son, the best face, the finest figure, I thought, I had ever seen, a third person in a pink dress and black lace mantle. I noted them all, the third person as well as the other two, and for the fraction of a moment believed them all strangers, thus receiving an impartial impression of their appearance. But the impression was hardly felt and not fixed, before the consciousness that I faced a great mirror, filling a compartment between two pillars, dispelled it. The party was our own party. Thus, for the first, and perhaps only time in my life, I enjoyed the gifty of seeing myself as others see me. No need to dwell on the result. It brought a jar of discord, a pang of regret. It was not flattering. Yet, after all, I ought to be thankful. It might have been worse. At last we were seated in places commanding a good general view of that vast and dazzling, but warm and cheerful hall. Already it was filled, and filled with a splendid assemblage. I do not know that the women were very beautiful, but their dresses were so perfect, and foreigners, even such as are ungraceful in domestic privacy, seem to possess the art of appearing graceful in public, however blunt and boisterous those everyday and home movements connected with peignoir and papillotes. There is a slide, a bend, a carriage of the head and arms, a mien of the mouth and eyes, kept nicely in reserve for gala use, always brought out with the grand toilette, and duly put on with the parure. Some fine forms there were here and there, models of a peculiar style of beauty, a style, I think, never seen in England, a solid, firm-set, sculptural style. These shapes have no angles. A caryatid in marble is almost as flexible. A Phidian goddess is not more perfect in a certain still and stately sort. They have such features as the Dutch painters give to their Madonnas, low country classic features, regular but round, straight but stolid, and full their depth of expressionless calm, of passionless peace. A polar snowfield could alone offer a type. Women of this order need no ornament, and they seldom wear any. The smooth hair, closely braided, supplies a sufficient contrast to the smoother cheek and brow. The dress cannot be too simple. The rounded arm and perfect neck require neither bracelet nor chain. With one of these beauties I once had the honor and rapture to be perfectly acquainted. The inert force of the deep, settled love she bore herself was wonderful. It could only be surpassed by her proud impotency to care for any other living thing. Of blood, her cool veins conducted no flow. Placid lymph filled and almost obstructed her arteries. Such a Juno as I have described sat full in our view, a sort of mark for all eyes, and quite conscious that so she was, but proof to the magnetic influence of gaze or glance, cold, rounded, blonde, and beauteous as the white column, capitalled with gilding, which rose at her side. Observing that Dr. John's attention was much drawn towards her, I entreated him in a low voice, for the love of heaven to shield well his heart, "You need not fall in love with that lady," I said, "because, I tell you beforehand, you might die at her feet, and she would not love you again." "Very well," said he, "and how do you know that the spectacle of her grand insensibility might not with me be the strongest stimulus to homage?" The sting of desperation is, I think, a wonderful irritant to my emotions, but," shrugging his shoulders, "you know nothing about these things. I'll address myself to my mother. Mamma, I'm in a dangerous way." "As if that interested me," said Mrs. Bretton. "Alas, the cruelty of my lot," responded her son. "Never man had a more unsentimental mother than mine. She never seems to think that such a calamity can befall her as a daughter-in-law. If I don't, it is not for want of having that same calamity held over my head. You have threatened me with it for the last 10 years. 'Mamma, I'm going to be married soon,' was the cry before you were well out of jackets. But, mother, one of these days it will be realized. All of a sudden, when you think you are most secure, I shall go forth, like Jacob or Esau or any other patriarch, and take me a wife, perhaps of these which are of the daughters of the land. At your peril, John Graham, that is all. This mother of mine means me to be an old bachelor. What a jealous old lady it is! But now, just look at that splendid creature in the pale blue satin dress, and hair of paler brown, with reflets satinaes as those of her robe. Would you not feel proud, mamma?" if I were to bring that goddess home some day and introduce her to you as Mrs. Breton, Jr.? You will bring no goddess to La Terrasse. That little chateau will not contain two mistresses, especially if the second be of the height, bulk, and circumference of that mighty doll in wood and wax, and kid and satin. Mamma, she would fill your blue chair so admirably. Fill my chair? I defy the foreign usurper. A rueful chair should it be for her. But hush, John Graham, hold your tongue and use your eyes. During the above skirmish, the hall, which I had thought seemed full at the entrance, continued to admit party after party, until the semicircle before the stage presented one dense mass of heads, sloping from floor to ceiling. The stage, too, or rather the wide temporary platform, larger than any stage, desert half an hour since, was now overflowing with life. Round two grand pianos, placed about the centre, a white flock of young girls, the pupils of the Conservatoire, had noiselessly poured. I had noticed their gathering while Graham and his mother were engaged in discussing the belle in blue satin, and had watched with interest the process of arraying and marshalling them. Two gentlemen, in each of whom I recognized an acquaintance, officered this virgin troop. One, an artistic-looking man, bearded and with long hair, was a noted pianiste, and also the first music teacher in Villette. He attended twice a week at Madame Beck's pensionnat to give lessons to the few pupils whose parents were rich enough to allow their daughters the privilege of his instructions. His name was Monsieur Joseph Emmanuel, and he was half-brother to Monsieur Paul, which potent personage was now visible in the person of the second gentleman. End of section 32. Recording by Leanne Fortune.